So today we're going to talk a little bit about social marketing and how it relates to the small business world. And one thing I will say, by the time this is over, something has already happened in the social media space, and something on here is already going to be outdated. It is always changing, and we'll kind of get into a little bit of that early, some things that actually happened today. Some of the things we'll be talking about is what does the social media landscape look like? Four of the key platforms, as well as if you're going to be going into social marketing, what does that look like for you as a small business? It's truly evolving, it's truly changing, and it's truly shifting the way that we approach media and how we communicate with customers. Just as an example, this is an eye chart that kind of looks, this was actually launched last week, of all of the social networks kind of as they are today in groups. Amazingly, there's actually more that are missing on here as well. So when you look at this, especially from a business perspective, it can become really overwhelming. So you don't start here. You start with the ones that go to your target market. But there's some probably you've heard a lot of, Facebook and Twitter. Pinterest, which we'll get into a little bit, isn't even on here. So that was kind of a big gain last week of identifying which of the social media networks haven't been featured and haven't been captured. So the key platforms we're actually going to be talking about today are Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. Has anybody here heard of Pinterest? Couple? Okay. It's probably the newest one on the street, and so we'll get into that a little bit more. So let's start with Facebook. The last 12 months for Facebook have been pretty huge. They've launched their new timeline, which is their new pages on the website right there for all the brands as well as consumers. They've purchased Instagram, which is a photo mobile sharing application. And just last week they went public on the NASDAQ. And today they launched a camera application. So as I said, this market is ever changing and ever evolving. The key things that Facebook is driving is mobilization as well as visualization. So if you remember the old Facebook page, it's a lot of text. It was pretty word heavy. They're going to a visual platform. So what is that going to mean when you're doing SEO, market integration, so search engine marketing like Google AdWords? It's all going to be changing here shortly. So what do high users of Facebook look like? They're spending almost an hour a day on it, and they're commenting about 25 times a day on products, friends, and families, status updates, photos, videos. So they're a very engaged audience. So much so that Facebook is rivaling Google from a search engine marketing capability perspective. More people are going onto Facebook to search for products and reviews. In addition, if you post a product on your Facebook page, 78% of your friends are clicking through to find out more. So talk about free advertising, free word of mouth, kind of that global marketplace. This article was actually happened last week. Forbes had an article talking about the truth and lies in advertising on Facebook, which then again was rivaling Facebook and Google to see who will win the search game. At the end of the day, they're saying Facebook will because of the content and the sharing capabilities. In addition, they're also looking at Facebook is great for business to consumer, so our B2C market. LinkedIn is king for B2B. So depending on who your target market is, again, you could be approaching the subjects very differently. And interesting enough, they're also saying that LinkedIn had 277% more effective for lead generation than Facebook and Twitter. So really, where are you going and what are you trying to get out of your social media is much more important than being on, I have to be on Facebook, I have to be on Twitter. It's which one really works best for your business. So let's jump into LinkedIn. Over 150 million members. Every 2 seconds, someone is joining LinkedIn. 60% of those people are outside of the U.S., and it's one of the top 30 websites across the world that people are visiting on a day-to-day basis. How many people have a LinkedIn account? How many have it for their small business or company? How many people are using the answers tools to ask an expert? How many are using it for groups, tools? Okay, a couple. Polls. So these are all free assets that LinkedIn has that you can use. You don't have to pay for the membership to use it. So it goes much more beyond putting your resume out there or putting your work history out there. There are tools within LinkedIn that you can be using that can really further your business much further than you're probably leveraging it today. So let's jump into Twitter. I kind of like to think Twitter as the red-headed stepchild of the social media space. 140 characters, what could you possibly do in 140 characters? Quite a bit, you'd be surprised. In fact, a lot of people are saying Twitter has rediscovered the headline because it has to be something people are going to want to be passing along. So there's been a lot of art going into how do you craft that message. 1 million people are joining Twitter every day. Think of the audience. Brazil, US, Japan are the top leaders in that, as well as over 175 million tweets a day. So what are you tweeting about? In addition, think of from a small business perspective, a lot of people are saying media is kind of driving a lot of that growth. A lot of news outlets, a lot of newscasters, journalists. Within Twitter, who are you building with that relationship with to kind of start that dialogue of saying, hey, we're launching a new product. Hey, we want to invite you to something. It's all there. It's all available to you every day. How do you get something to be retweeted, if you will? It's all about content. Content is king. It needs to be relevant. And a lot of the times, it's also that personal connection that you're establishing with an organization, a company, or even just a friend. And research shows the main reason why people are retweeting is due to the interesting content. I thought this was really interesting. These are the top 5 moments in Twitter history, if you will. Has anyone heard of Castle in the Sky? I hadn't either. But they had over 25,000 tweets per second on their final episode. Super Bowl last minutes, over 10,000 tweets per second. Per second. Imagine what that does from a data perspective, all hitting the network all at one time, and to go through it. Madonna was also up there with the last minutes. Tim Tebow's win, over 9,000, and then Beyonce at the VMAs is the 8,000 per second. So Pinterest, as I referenced earlier, this is the new kid on the block. It's only been launched for about 2 years, and yet it's the fastest growing website and social network across the board right now. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically an online sharing pin board. And so I would call it's the epicenter of the like and the repin. To date, users have increased over 145% in the last 5 months. In addition, it's generating more referral traffic to websites than YouTube, Google+, and LinkedIn combined. So if you're a B2C customer base, you're missing out because these people, it's free, and you can go up there, you can post your photos, post videos, people then like it, and then are going through to your company's website to find out more information and purchase. Some interesting facts, over 10 million users. Most of the site is female, and it's going to be the fastest site to break the 10 million unique visitor mark. On the left-hand side, this is actually the top interest for Pinterest in the UK, which I thought was interesting compared to the US. So the US is much more domestic, much more home, much more leisure, if you will. And the UK is looking at it much more from a business perspective, looking at venture capitalists, websites, blogging resources, as well as SEO and marketing. So it's also interesting if you are a global company, where are you putting your messaging? Because this could be another great resource for you as well as a different avenue. So marketers say 88% social media has a positive effect on their overall efforts. So let's get into how can you set it up as a small business. First, think action and content. So it's not about the channel. It's not about let's be on YouTube. Let's be on Twitter to be on Twitter. It's the why behind it. So think about, are you engaging? Are you responding? What is going to be your message? Who's your target market? All of those things need to be taken into consideration before you ever pick an avenue that you're going to be going down. So in the example of Savis, they're listening to what their customers are saying, and their customers happen to be on Twitter, so that's where they're listening to their customers at. And also responding and communicating. Technology. Per a couple earlier slides where we had all of those different social media avenues, it can be overwhelming. How are you ever going to track this? There are tools out there that are low cost or free that you can leverage to set things up. I recommend Hootsuite or TweetDeck, but there's many more. And develop those metrics. What are you going to be measuring on? Are you going to be doing it on the click-through to your website? Is it the number of likes? Is it the comments? Is it the number of retweets? All of those things can be taken into consideration. And then protect yourself legally. What's your social media policy? If you are even a shop of 2 up to hundreds, you need to know and establish those type of guidelines. So what type of information are you going to be sharing? You don't want to share something that you obviously don't want public. What's the tone? You know, not all positive comments, there are going to be negative comments. How are you going to respond to that? What's your crisis plan? If something is to go wrong in the outside of the social world and it gets picked up, how are you going to be responding that via social media? Kind of think of the storms when power outage goes on. PSE, you know, was talking every day to their customers saying, hey, this is where we're at, this is what's going to be going on. Giving those types of updates in real time, it's much more faster than having to wait for a news crew or maybe wait for a story to be published. They have one-stop place to go. 360 degrees of communication, truly. So it's not just your message on Facebook, but what are you going to also be messaging on your website, on your direct mail? You can put your Twitter handle on your business cards. It's really a 360 degree of communication. It can't act in a silo alone. You need to be supporting it throughout your other channels. And it doesn't have to always be the same message. This is more of support topics, daily updates, news updates, but it needs to be supportive in your overall marketing campaign. So in a recap, we need to think about, it's going to be here, it's not going away, so how are you going to be involving it, and how are you going to be embracing it? It can be a powerful tool if executed correctly. You need to have a plan. You can't just let an intern do it. It's not something you can set up on Monday, you're done by Wednesday, and by Thursday you're going to be out golfing and having a great time on the weekends and you don't have to look at it. There's tools in place that help you manage it, but it's something that's going to be an ongoing attention. It's not just going to be going away. Integration is mandatory across all of your media mix, whether that's down to your letterhead, all the way up to if you're having a radio or television campaign. And remember, quality better than quantity. It's not how many times you're tweeting a day, but are you tweeting things that are relevant to your target market? And protecting yourself. Thank you.
That was great.